really pleased to be back at the CFA conference. And I was able to join yesterday on the festivities. And when I arrived, Darlene McBain says, Justine, you got to know, today at the meetings, FCC was mentioned 6 times in terms of the programs it's going to offer. Well, Keith, you told me you'd mention it at least 10, so you still have 4 to go. But what I wanted to, before I do my formal remarks and then we get to the conversation, maybe just say a couple of words about that, because not everybody was at the Future Food Conference last week. So when we kind of presented an update on the general relation opportunity, which we still believe is in front of us, and with David and Erika, we'll explore how we're going to get there. I did mention in my comments in terms of some of the realities that we're all facing and the ones that we don't know we're going to face this year. And my commitment at the conference was to share with everybody that FCC is ready to support each and every one of you. So I thought I would give it to you from the top in terms of whether it's the programs that we've been known for in the past, whether events take place, where there's a desire or a need for working capital. Some of the things that we did during COVID, we've oiled up the machine, so to speak. So that when these changes start to take place from a Team Canada perspective, we will be there to support you. And then in some instances, it might present also some opportunities. And I didn't want to kick off the day without mentioning that as well. So again, reach out to us. I've got 2,400 staff that are so passionate about the industry and ready and able to help. So I thought I would mention that this morning. So now, like Keith, sometimes we do have to follow instructions and be a little bit more formal. So allow me to share a few words, and then we'll dive in with David and Erika to kind of better understand some of their realities. So, good morning, everybody. Les personnes qui ont participé à la conférence Nourrir l'avenir il y a 2 semaines se souviendront que nous avons parlé des possibilités incroyables qui s'offrent à l'industrie agricole du Canada. Le principal élément qui est ressorti de ces conversations est que l'avenir de l'agriculture, c'est quelque chose que nous devons tous bâtir ensemble. Just 2 days ago, alongside CFA, many of you sat as a follow-up discussion to a survey we conducted in December. It was a really powerful conversation about the challenges young producers are facing, what's working, and what's missing. And while the barriers are real, one thing stood out: the energy and the drive to move things forward, to not just inherit this industry, but to lead it. My commitment to you is that the insights from that discussion won't just sit in a report. They will help shape how the industry evolves to better support our young farmers. We know that being a young farmer today isn't easy, whether it's acquiring land, accessing financing, or simply finding enough hours in the day to get it all done. But there's also an undeniable sense of momentum, and that's what I want to talk about today. Agriculture isn't just another industry. It's a pillar of Canada's economy, a foundation of our rural communities, and quite simply, it's how we feed the world. Nous nous trouvons actuellement dans un tournant. Les 10 à 15 prochaines années détermineront à quoi ressemblera l'industrie agricole canadienne pour la prochaine génération. Et il ne s'agit pas de n'importe quelle transition. Il s'agit d'une occasion qui ne se présente qu'une fois par génération. Le nombre d'exploitations agricoles qui changent de main n'a jamais été aussi élevé. Les nouvelles technologies transforment la façon dont nous produisons des aliments. Les marchés mondiaux sont en train de changer. Les décisions prises aujourd'hui définiront ce secteur pour des décennies. Canadian agriculture already contributes $150 billion annually to our GDP, and it supports 2.3 million jobs. That's 1 in 9 Canadians. It has outperformed the rest of the economy in 7 of the last 10 years, proving time and time again that it's a key driver to our national growth. I just actually returned from a trip to Singapore at the Canada-Asia Conference, which was attended by some of the largest buyers and investors in Asia. And their message to Team Canada was pretty simple. They want more of Canada, and they're wondering, what are we waiting to do something about it? Canada, around the world, is one of the most trusted food producers. Our reputation for quality, safety, and sustainability is huge. It's a competitive advantage that we have against so many others. And it's up to the next generation to build on that advantage. But with that strength comes responsibility to adapt, to lead, and to ensure Canadian agriculture remains productive and competitive in an increasingly complex world. You are part of an industry that is evolving faster than ever. Technology is reshaping farm operations, creating new efficiencies and opportunities. Climate challenges demand innovation in resource management, while shifting supply chains and global trade disruptions, including tariffs, make markets more unpredictable. And at the same time, the cost of doing business continues to rise, adding pressures to stay competitive. More than ever, long-term sustainability depends on our ability to invest in productivity and remain globally competitive while ensuring farms are financially valuable for the next generation. We have a saying at FCC, sustainability goes hand in hand with profitability. It isn't just about inheriting an industry, it's about leading it into the future. We know stepping into this industry comes with real challenges. Through our work with CFA, we surveyed hundreds of young producers to better understand what's on your mind. And here's what we heard loud and clear. For many young farmers, securing land and financial support is a major hurdle. While funding exists, many struggle to access it under the current financial models, whether it's securing loans without established security, finding grants, or accessing free financial management tools. Land ownership remains a challenge. Survey respondents ranked land access and ownership as the lowest performing area when it comes to available resources and knowledge from industry groups and associations. Many young farmers are looking for alternative solutions, such as rent-to-own models, transition financing, or co-ownership options to help bridge that gap. Because a strong farm transition isn't just about passing down assets, it's about passing down the opportunity. More than half of the young farmers said they struggle to engage in industry networks because they simply don't have enough time. Farming, as you know, isn't a 9-to-5 job. But that doesn't mean you should have to choose between running your operations, having a voice in this industry, or spending time with your family. We need to create more accessible ways for young farmers to connect, whether that's through digital tools, flexible mentorship programs, or peer networks that meet you where you are. Because the future of agriculture and food isn't built by one generation alone. It needs all of us working together to move this industry forward. Market volatility, trade disruptions, and climate unpredictability add layers of complexity to every single decision you make each and every day. Young farmers don't just need financing, they need risk management strategies that work for the long haul, whether that's better crop insurance options, access to real-time market data, or financial tools that help navigate the ups and downs. Resilience isn't just about surviving through the tough years. It's about having the confidence to invest in the future, even when the road ahead is uncertain. And despite these challenges, one thing is crystal clear. Young farmers aren't looking for a way out. You're looking for partners to help you face them head on. And the industry needs to meet you there with real solutions that help you grow, adapt, and lead. So what can the industry do? Well, financial tools, for one, need to evolve. The traditional one-size-fits-all approach to financing simply doesn't always work for young farmers, and we need to do something about it. We need options that reflect the reality of today's farm businesses, whether it's tailored financing for land and equipment, flexible transition models to help farms change hands, or cash flow solutions that give young farmers room to invest in growth while managing risk. Young farmers shouldn't have to figure everything out on their own. The industry needs to strengthen mentorship programs and create more accessible peer networks, but we also need to recognize that the connection itself looks different today. The survey found that young producers are increasingly networking online, relying less on traditional in-person events. That means we need to invest in digital knowledge sharing platforms that make it easy to connect, easy to learn, and easy to collaborate. Wherever you are, because stronger the network, the stronger the industry will be and will become. Young farmers are adopting technology at a faster rate than ever before. Precision ag, automation, sustainability-driven practices, and this isn't just a nice to have, is what they tell us, it is a must-have. Et si nous voulons que le Canada reste un chef de file dans le domaine de l'agriculture, l'industrie doit suivre le mouvement tout en veillant à ce que ces jeunes agriculteurs aient accès aux outils, à la formation et au soutien dont ils ont besoin pour mettre en œuvre ces innovations. Les jeunes agriculteurs se lancent et apportent de nouvelles idées, de l'ambition et de la résilience. La question n'est pas de savoir s'ils sont prêts à prendre les rênes, mais plutôt si l'industrie est prête à les soutenir. So, where do we go from here? The reality is, your voice matters. Your experiences, your challenges, and your ideas are shaping the future of this industry, whether you realize it or not. The decisions being made today on financing, technology, and sustainability will impact young farmers for decades to come. And if we want to get this right, young farmers need to be part of the conversation. That means getting involved, whether it's in industry associations, mentorship programs, or discussions like this one we're about to have. It means speaking up, sharing what's working, what's missing, and what needs to change. And it means pushing for solutions that aren't just designed for the agriculture of the past, but for the industry of the future. Parce que l'avenir de l'agriculture n'est pas quelque chose qui vous arrive. C'est quelque chose que vous créez dès maintenant, chaque jour, avec chaque décision que vous prenez. We've covered a lot of ground in the last few minutes about the opportunities ahead, the challenges young farmers face, and how the industry needs to step up to support you. But I think now I want to bring the conversation to life. So why don't we hear from Erika and David? So first off, Erika and David, I'm so happy that you invested the time to come and be with us at the CFA conference. And I think we can't say it often enough. When we have the ability to hear from the generation of the future, nothing inspires this room more than that. So I know we're going to have a great conversation, but Keith said a few introductory words about where you're from and what you're about. But why don't I start with you, Erika? I think how you ended up in Saskatchewan is an adventure in itself.
Yeah. Thanks, Justine.
Oh, is it on?
How's that? Thanks, Justine.
Is it getting better? Oh,
Can you hear me?
I'd rip off my mic and give it to you, but that would not be.
How about that?
Oh, hang on. Sometimes you have to. Oh, look at this. Help is on the way. Help is on the way.
Check.
It better be a good story, eh?
The suspense kills
Hey,
everyone.
there you go. Okay. How did you get to Saskatchewan, Erika?
Yeah, thank you. So I grew up on my family's cow-calf operation in Merritt, BC, so the southern interior of BC. My husband and I were quite young. We knew that we wanted to ranch, like that was, our life goal, so we wanted to do that. And looking around, there wasn't access to land. We were pretty landlocked. So we made the big decision, the very tough decision, like it's a place that I grew up on, my dad grew up on. I thought I would raise my family there and run that place. We sold that in 2017 and bought land in Morris, Saskatchewan, and moved our whole ranching operation to Saskatchewan. So yeah, so we're currently ranching there in the Coteau Hills. So really rolling ground, so not what you picture Saskatchewan. If nobody's been there, it's not flat. And it's mostly native grassland, so that's something that we're really passionate about, is taking care of that grassland, managing that properly, as that land's, never been broken. That was the same grasses that the bison grazed when they were there. So yeah, that's pretty special to us. So yeah, we run a commercial cow-calf operation there, grass some yearlings. Soil health is really important to us, so we do a lot of grazing management around soil health. Low stress handling is really important. We're kind of traditional in that way. We move all our cattle and do all our cattle work on horseback and use dogs. We also ranch with our daughters, which are an integral part of our operation, and actually part of the vision statement of our ranch, that we want to do things together as a family on and off the ranch. So incorporating them into our work is really important. And so having horses and dogs, like, we invest a lot of time and effort into that. And so if the girls are out riding with us moving cows and things are going crazy, or they need help with the horse, we can send dogs out to help us do the job. And those horses and dogs have kind of solved our HR problem a little bit too.
Yeah, well, I guess they might be due for a raise at one point, so keep that in mind. So David, 10 generations, that's quite something. So did you always know that you wanted to be the next one to continue with the operation?
Actually, no.
Okay.
Yeah, to be completely honest. So, yeah, 10 generations. So our farm started in 1761.
Wow.
With planters coming up from New England and starting that land. And we actually have some of that original land plot still being in our operation today.
Amazing.
So I started working at a young age. So I remember I was about 7 years old, and my grandfather went on vacation. So me and my brother collected eggs while he was gone. And then going through high school, I started working on the farm full time. I was never pushed to do it, but my parents said, "You're in high school, you have to work.
Yeah.
If you don't want to work in the farm, that's fine, but we'll pay you more if you work on the farm." So I worked on the farm full time in the summers, and then after I graduated high school, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I ended up going to Halifax, the major city, and I went to St. Mary's University. I did a Bachelor of Commerce, major in finance, and I would stay in the city pretty much full time throughout the semester, and then Christmas break and spring break and summers come home and work on the farm. And I think after about 18 months, I was like, yeah, this isn't the life for me. I just felt so much better coming back, being on the farm, working there. And by the time I graduated university, there was no doubt in my mind that farming was definitely the future for me.
Excellent. So I think we'd love to hear from you in terms of, I commented on, the one of the biggest hurdles right now is ownership of land, right? So we've recently are about to come up with our land values report, and if you look at the last few years, they just, on a good side, right, they keep on going up and up, but on the challenging side, if you're looking to come into the industry, you're in a situation of transition, or you want to expand, it becomes such a critical component. So Erika, how was that element, right, when you and your husband decided to take over the business, and you might be looking, right, even in your area for those opportunities? How are you navigating that challenge?
It is a real challenge, and that was part of the decision of the move. Not the complete, there was other influencing factors, but part of the big decision is we could sell land in BC and buy substantially more in Saskatchewan. So yeah, and obviously that isn't practical for everybody. And then, but even in Saskatchewan, since we've moved, land prices have increased so much,
yeah.
right? And there's other bigger corporations that have moved in beside us that just make that really inaccessible. But some of the things we've done are making those strategic partnerships. So we've partnered with Ducks Unlimited Canada. It's not an easement, but they have shorter agreements. So we have 10-year agreements with them on our native grassland not to break or drain. So things like that have been helpful. There are a lot of programs like that. The government of Saskatchewan has some programs for more infrastructure, not necessarily land, but yeah, just to help out like that. And the other thing we're really trying to do that I mentioned is really focus on our grazing management. And so if we can produce more dollars per acre on what we have and actually run more cattle by managing it better, to us, we think that's, a benefit and can help with that land access issue.
Okay, no, that's super interesting. And how about yourself, David? Not in the same province necessarily. Land values are still going up, though, and you've certainly diversified over the years. So how have you navigated that reality?
Yeah, so I mean, land costs, it's a struggle for everyone. We've been lucky being such a well-established farm that we do have a lot of the asset base required. The more that we face is there's a lot of competition. So the area that I'm in Nova Scotia has some of the best soils, I think in Canada. And they're very rich, and it's a bidding war anytime a block of land comes up for sale. So where we put a lot of our focus is on the relationship with the landowners. So, we crop about 1,900 acres, but I'd say probably, 800 to 900 of that is land that we're renting from other farmers or just people that have farmland. So the important thing for us is when we rent from somebody, we always pay them on time. We build a good relationship with them. We're not going to spread a bunch of manure 2 days before they have a summer barbecue or, if we're trying to get crops in late in the night, we will always avoid fields around their house.
Fair.
So we're not disturbing them. And things like, we have an excavator which, will trim back tree lines, and we'll do cost sharing with them to help clear their fields or ditch their fields so they get benefit, and then we cover some of the cost. And that's worked really well because, when they decide that they want to sell, they often come to us first.
Yeah.
And then in different times, they say, you know what, we're going to put on the open market, whatever the highest bid, we'll give you the chance to match, and if you want to go forward with it. And I think that's been really important for us.
So it's really it's about the partnership, right? And not looking at it from a short-term point of view. It's from a long-term point of view, and so that when that opportunity comes, you can kind of strike, right? So that's really interesting to hear. If we were to talk a little bit now about scaling, right? So, talking about the high prices of land value, but I mean, there's opportunities out there that, often we hear young farmers, when they see it, they want to go for it, but it's not always easy, whether it is accessing capital, the technology that you might want to utilize that comes at a high cost. So any insights you can share with us in terms of when you're looking at some of those opportunities, what are maybe the one or two things that you'd say, if we could have more support here, it could make a big difference? David?
Yeah, in terms of scaling, I think probably one of the most important things you can do is have the financial literacy element to your business. Because if you're looking to make big purchases, you need to know how much debt can I take on, can I cash flow it? If you're trying to look at, a project like building a new chicken barn, for example, how much, revenue is that going to generate? Can I service the debt on that? And, what interest rates are affordable? And, anytime you're scaling, you got to be careful that you don't, become land poor, for example. And so I think the financial literacy part is really important. A lot of young farmers, they're very passionate about farming. A lot of them go to, university for ag degrees. But to have a really strong financial background, I think, is really important.
Makes a big difference. Erika, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I completely agree. So there are programs out there like for, I'm obviously livestock specific, but there's like a ranching for profit school that I attended, and yeah, there's a big focus on financial literacy, which I think previously was really missing from our business model and things we talk about. And for us, like when we moved and trying to scale, and then after we moved the next summer, there was another like 16 quarters that came up beside us, and we did decide to jump in and, tried to make the best decision we could at the time with all the information we had. So we did take on a lot of debt, and then it stopped raining. So, right? You have that, but I think just the ability to have those relationships with, the FCC, managers, account managers, and be able to pivot a little bit and look at your operation and see where am I lacking? How could I improve? And I guess for us, that was kind of the grazing management. You're like, we're in a drought. We have these really high payments now, and we've had to decrease our cow herd because we're in drought. So how can we pivot and still make that work? So just kind of, looking internally a bit too about what you can do and how you can improve your management.
So what I'm hearing in your responses is, it's almost like going in eyes wide open, but in order to be able to do that, you got to understand your business. So there's definitely a big business component to this, right? So you can have the secret recipe in terms of what can work, leveraging those programs that are out there to make sure that you can equip yourself, And I hear working with your, with whatever your finance partner is, because the reality is things will happen. So then it's this ability to pivot, right? Or so that you don't lose out on the opportunities, but you can kind of work your way through depending on what's going on. David, I know Keith talked about it at the introduction, but one of the areas that you're really passionate about is wellness, right? Mental wellness. And I must say, when I started this job, that's one of the things, I was blindsided by it, because I had never really stopped to think that a particular industry could be more impacted by mental wellness than another one. But you've turned it into a passion in terms of, speaking out more about it, seeing what you can do about it. So can you maybe share a little bit more about some of your thoughts on that and what we need to do?
So I guess it kind of started when I was on the Farm Safety Nova Scotia board. We got survey results in that looked at the mental health and wellness of farmers, and the stats weren't good.
They weren't good, yeah.
We're looking at like 75% of farmers with moderate to high stress. Same with anxiety. They're twice as likely to have suicidal ideation as the general public. And and we're starting to see some of it in our own industry. So that's kind of when we decided we need to have a specific mental health program just for farmers, and that's how it kind of got rolling. So unfortunately, I termed out of my position on the board, but we were able to get the program launched, and that's where I came on as an ambassador.
Yeah.
Because we need to have voices that can really support this. Some of the most important things are having mental health resources that are tailored to farmers and the ag industry. We've heard from a lot of people that they're finally willing to take that step and reach out, and then they're trying to explain farming to the mental health professional, and that does not help with the stress that they're facing. Or you finally break it down and tell them what you're doing, and they say, well, just take a couple days off, get away for the weekend. It's like, I work on a dairy farm. The cows don't stop milking for the weekend.
Yeah.
And getting away might cause me more stress.
Yeah.
And so that's really important. I think probably the biggest thing right now is we need to break the stigma in the agricultural community around mental health and wellness. There's still a lot of, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. If I just get through this week and get everything done, things will get better. And I think we need to start breaking that down. And an easy way to do that is often, especially here in Canada, you meet somebody, you say, oh, how are you doing? And the response is almost, oh, I'm good.
I'm good,
great.
yeah.
Even when a lot of the time you might not be.
Yeah.
And so that's a great opportunity to say, you know what? Things have actually been a little tough.
Yeah.
And then that kind of opens up that conversation, especially if it's with someone you trust and you respect, parents, partners, kids, whatever it might be. And be willing to be vulnerable and talk, because that's the whole point of the program is we talk, we grow.
Yeah. No, I commend you for your efforts there, and I couldn't agree with you more, because if you look at it, with everything coming at us, we're all just so busy. But what you're speaking about, too, is taking the time, and just the time to invest. It's like when the kids come home, right? I don't know if you face that, but, hey, mom's at the table, so how was the day? I'm good. And I have a rule in my house, you're not allowed to say good, right? So then I go after, I say, what do you mean? You got to give me more. You got to give me more. But if you don't, right, sometimes you don't create that environment for people to speak up. And then once you do that, as you said, if we talk, we grow, right, to get better. So if we build on that and we talk a little bit about the balance, right? It is not a 9-to-5 job. You need to milk the cows. So how, from your perspective, and maybe Erika, I'll go to you first. So describe for us what's work-life balance for you? And if you say it doesn't exist, I will totally get it. But, and maybe give us some ideas, like what does it mean for you? And if anything, what could we do to help you get there?
No, that's such a good question. And to be perfectly honest, it doesn't really.
Yeah, exactly. Right? It's a myth.
But I've heard it described before as like, instead of work-life balance, like it's a work-life sway. Because we're never going to be in balance, especially in agriculture. And if you work off the farm, like I have another job too, so, just a side hobby that, it's busy, right? We have kids. So trying to find that balance, I guess, is tricky. So I like to describe it as like a sway. So in some times a year, like right now, my off-farm job is busy. So I'm away a lot, but the farm is less busy, right? So it's kind of that sway. And then where do kids fit in there? So just being really intentional. you know, when it's really busy at work and on the ranch, like where are we making time for kids too?
Yeah.
So one of the things that we did, and I mean, this doesn't work for everybody, right? It's just in our context, this worked, was making the decision and then that paradigm shift of maybe we don't need to put up winter feed. Like, yes, we need to feed our cows, and we do. But instead of us putting it up, we have limited tame acres. It's been dry, so instead of like beating our head against the wall, putting up like half a bale to the acre, right, like nothing, and still having to buy and having those high overheads of equipment costs, fuel, all the things, does this make sense to us? And financial literacy, right? Like we can work those numbers and be like, you know what, it doesn't, which then opens up our summer to do other things.
Yeah.
And to be with our kids a little bit more. So yes, I'm saying that's not obviously everybody's context or work for everybody, but that worked for us, and just being really intentional about that sway and not being busy all the time. That work flows into ranch, flows into work again, flows into busy kids season in sports. So yeah, I guess just being really intentional with that and thinking, where can we shift? Just because we've always put up feed,
Yeah.
we work all summer to work all winter to feed our cows. Does that actually make sense for us right now? Or can we do something different to help that sway or that balance?
So it's what you're talking about, I think, is, and I'm sure many people in the audience, we face the same thing. There's options, right? But it's making the tough choice, right? Because once you make the choice, there's a consequence to it, and there's positive, but sometimes there's just a reality, right? It could be that financial reality, and so, but if you don't make the choice, then you don't give yourself the chance to get closer to that balance. Does that make sense? Or?
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I just wanted to add, I feel this is more like for the ladies in the crowd, but I heard a lady say, like, she hires housekeeping out, and I started doing that. And just to help that balance or that sway has been huge for us, because I didn't like doing it, and I was grumpy. Yeah. So it's like one less thing off the list, and then it just like helps our family dynamic. So if that's something you're considering, like, yeah, it's the best money I could spend in a month, and it just really helps our family. So anything, yeah, just like you said, those choices.
Super. David, how about you? What's your ideal work-life balance?
My ideal work-life balance would probably be no kids and no farming, but you know.
Okay, next question.
It's it's definitely busy.
That'll be the next session, right? Yeah.
If I didn't love both of them so much, it might happen. But no, it's tough. I think the most important thing for me has been just having like really open and honest conversations.
Yeah.
And making my priorities clear. So, you know, when I first had kids, I sat down with my dad and uncle, who were the two owners at the time, and I said, you know, that 5 to 7 in the evening, that's pretty much non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to be at home with the family, do the supper, bedtime stuff, and if we're really busy during planting or harvest, I'll go back to work later in the evening, and I'll take that time away from myself, but I'm not going to take that away from my kids.
Yeah.
And same thing, you know, during the slower times of year, like if I have a weekend off, then I'm off.
Yeah.
And trying to make sure that, all right, who's going to be around on call if issues pop up, but I don't want to be the one always getting called into the farm just because I live on the farm.
Yeah.
And so that was really important. And then the other side of that was talking to my wife as well and saying, listen, if I check on the chicken barn at 5 and one of our feeders went down and the birds have no feed, I'm coming in late because I got to make sure our animals are taken care of too.
Yeah.
So letting her know that, you know, these are the certain priorities that I have to get done for the farm, but trust me, I'm going to do everything I can to be at home.
Yeah.
So if I'm not home, like it's a big issue.
Yeah.
And then trying to navigate that balance has kind of been tough, but like I said, being clear with both parties, both, you know, in the work and family, that these are my priorities and that this is where I'm putting my effort when I can, has gone a long way.
Well, and I admire you for being, it's almost bold, sometimes to set a boundary. It's not easy, right? Because there's a part of it where you feel like, oh, am I letting somebody down? But, you know, once you get used to it, right, and it takes a while, I would assume that the concept of team really comes to life, right? Because ultimately you need the team, right? So if you're so tired, you're not at your best, right? The kids don't get the best of you. Your spouse doesn't get the best of you, and it just kind of goes downhill from there. But I think those are great insights, right? To first, you got to think about it. What is it going to take? What what do you need, I guess, for your unit to work? And then those that are around you have the courage to have the conversation, come to an agreement, and then make it happen. And maybe over time, right? Once the kids get a bit older, and maybe it won't be 5 to 7, right? It'll be 11 to 1 a.m. where you got to keep an eye whether or not they're coming home. But at least you'll be able to adjust accordingly, right?
And I think that ties in a lot with the mental health side too.
Yeah.
Like you said, you don't want to be burnt out. When you want to be with your kids, you want to be present and available because, those hours are precious.
Totally.
I was telling a few of the young farmers that it's crazy that I just signed my firstborn up for pre-primary starting this September, and it's like, holy crap.
It goes fast, eh?
How is he already going to school? But
yeah, you don't want to miss that time. No, I totally get it. Okay, so now let's talk a bit about innovation and technology, right? And what certainly we see, and I was mentioning in the survey, the next generation is quite eager and thinks of farming while including technology and innovation. And it's another one of those challenges, right? You want to kind of lean into it, you want to better understand it, but sometimes there's realities in the market, A, right, the capital to get there, B, the ability to get support along the way, because a new technology doesn't always work. But if I was to ask you, and I'll start with you, Erika, when you look back in terms of all the years you've been on the ranch, what have been maybe a couple of the innovations or the decisions you made that you say, wow, like that made a huge difference?
Next question, please. We were joking about this yesterday.
Yeah.
No, when I thought about that, that's the one that I probably struggled the most with, because we did really, when I was younger and came back, like, yeah, you're so excited and learn about all these things and try to implement them, but now we're kind of looking at taking a bit of a step back and just trying to simplify a bit. And I get like our operations are very different. But yeah, like, so we used to put up silage and feed with a mixer. So it's a lot of overheads, and yes, work with a nutritionist, and I still value that. But just trying to figure out if we actually need all that equipment, especially just like with prices. Obviously, cattle prices were great this year, but they haven't always been. So where can we like tighten our margins to actually make that work for us?
Yeah.
So yes, I'm not saying technology isn't important, because it is. And I mean, we've adopted technology in treatment records or like software to, track, you scan RFID tags and track treatments for sure, absolutely. But just looking at it, I guess for us is just trying to simplify things a little bit more. But another great example I thought about too was we sell our calves direct to a feedlot, and working with them a little bit on some of the technology they're implementing. So there are new like ear tags that almost have like a pedometer, like your smartwatch in them, and they can track temperature. So, when those calves aren't feeling well, they'll eat less, walk less, and they track that and get that, results right to their phone. So for animal care and those kind of things and antimicrobial resistance, that's going to be huge to adopt those practices, and less treats or treating quickly, and then you don't have those repeat pulls and treats. So things like that I think are really important. They don't maybe lean into our operation, but kind of the next steps or next fragments of our beef industry.
And sometimes it's indirect too, right? I mean, if you can have the right data at the right time to maximize your insights to make the decision, and technology can help you with that, that's fantastic, right? If not, you could be going back several times, and that eats in on your time and so forth. So I think that's a great example. How about you, David? Any recent, or as you look back, decisions around technology or innovation that you say that really made a difference for us?
Yeah, so there's been a couple. So, I mean, we've done a lot of no-till on our farm.
Okay.
And so we had to, innovate our equipment that can, cover the no-till ground. We've gotten bigger. A lot of our barns now, the control system for them are all online, so I can remote access them. Mm-hmm. And so that's some little stuff that, especially for me, helps with my work-life balance.
Yeah.
Because we can get the ground covered faster. We can check barns remotely, so we don't have to go out to the barn, depending on what it might be. The other two big ones, which I think really are important, is we put a feed mill in, I don't know, probably 15, 20 years ago now. And then we just put a soybean press in about 18 months ago. And so those two things were trying to capture those margins that other people are getting and then bring them into ourselves. So both of them kind of followed a similar path. So like the feed mill started as like a little mixer mill where we were buying just a couple things and mixing them together. And that did well. So then we expanded it and grew it a bit, and then we saw good return on that. So then we built it up again until the point it is now. And then the same thing with the press is expensive project, but we started with buying meal from a similar machine and soy oil from a similar machine, and then we just fed that in all the diets to our chickens.
Okay.
And we saw no change in performance. It's like, okay, that's good.
Yeah.
And so then after about 6 months, then we made the purchase to invest, and then we went out and we talked to people that had the equipment, got to understand it more, and then that's when we went forward with the full project. So, for us, the work-life balance innovations are important. Things that we can capture more margins that other people would be taking
For sure.
is really good for the business. And then for any of the really big ones is you don't need to jump in full steam ahead. Like, find ways that you can kind of gradually build it up, trial it out a little bit, and then if you have success, then you keep moving forward.
So it's kind of test and learn, and then, right, going to the source, so then you can better recognize, right, what are the opportunities, so that back to then when you need to make the financial decision, you're well informed and you can balance it all out. Erika, I know you're very passionate about public trust, right? And I think this whole industry is quite passionate about it. So what would you say are some of the challenges, I'll make it a Canadian challenge, that we have from an industry point of view in building public trust today?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And yeah, it was such a great panel yesterday morning discussing that very topic. So yeah, thank you for the organizers for that, because it was really great. I think part of our biggest challenge is connecting with consumers, because we are so far removed, or the consumer is so far removed, right, from food production. So I think that's really important. And I know when I started down this advocacy journey, I was just like all of us, right? We're so passionate about what we do, and we love what we do, and we want to like share that. Like, no, we do good things, right? But instead of just trying to like come at them with facts or stats, like really trying to connect on those values, because I think we are actually more aligned than we think.
Yeah.
Like when we kind of sort through all of that, like, hey, you value the environment, or you have concerns about that. Do you know what I do too? And that's like the biggest, priority on our ranch, right? Like, to connect that way and explain maybe some of the things that we're doing to help the environment, like our soil health goals, our grazing management, and just letting them know that, yeah, by doing this, we're actually helping increase biodiversity on our ranch. And you know what, we do partnerships with Birds Canada, and they've done birds counts, and how many birds they found and species at risk that also call our ranch home. So I think just really connecting on values can really help. And then also the panel discussion yesterday was really interesting. So our industry, we have like great organizations doing a lot of work on our behalf as producers to help share our story. They're all doing fantastic work, but from the panel discussion yesterday, it seems like they kind of all have their niche, right? What they're really good at and what they're doing. So like stats, consumer surveys, we need that information to see where the trends are. Canadian Food Focus, reaching out to consumers, we need that.
Yeah.
Egg in the classroom, connecting with kids and students and teachers, we need that. And so as producers, maybe we can like lean into what we already have. So there was a lot of talk on that panel yesterday about collaborating. Was producers, can we collaborate with some of these organizations who are already doing it? And I've been fortunate enough to collaborate with Canadian Food Focus. So I do videos of, life on the ranch. It's a video series called The Day in the Life at Pine Ranch. I take videos on my iPhone. Like, it doesn't have to be fancy.
Yeah.
But the thing I appreciated with that collaboration was I'm terrible at social media. I'm terrible at editing videos and work-life balance. Like, there's not a lot of time. So when you can partner, they can help. They help, edit those videos and put them out, but also share to their network where, they're engaging consumers already, and it kind of helps. It helped me, and I think it could help us as an industry break out of our echo chamber, right? Because I put it on my social media accounts. I get my other egg friends to like it, but that's not the goal.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's to push it out, right?
And so if we have organizations doing that already, so instead of us all individually going out and doing it, which is great, but is there a chance for us to collaborate with what we have within the industry to really, like I said, get out of that echo chamber and help that consumer trust there?
No, I love what you're saying, and it's to remember there's amazing stories, and I think people are super excited to hear them, but we have to get them to them, right? Like, never assume that people know, right? And if you make that effort, you can really have make a difference. So that clock it has a yellow light. So before Keith comes up with the cane and pulls us off, you have the opportunity with the ag industry in this room, in terms of as you look into the future and you're trying to navigate all of these complex realities, if there was one ask or one thing that's missing, right, that you'd like to share with us that we could then respond to with, I'd love to hear from the two of you on that. What could we do more for you?
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I could just say money. That'd be the easy one, but
Well, the bankers, I know where RBC is back there,
Yeah.
so we can get them to come.
money.
We'll
money
partner,
with,
Andrew. We're
maybe
good.
with no interest.
Andrew, that's your department. Call Andrew.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, there are a lot of great resources for young farmers, and I know like FCC has some stuff for young farmers looking for loans, and that's good. But I guess the one thing I'd say is, and I don't want to call you out, but I think we need to make sure that we really value the young farmers and the energy and the value that they bring. So the one thing I'll say is, you called us the future, but we're the now. Like, we're here, we're managing our farms, we're doing the work. And too often that young farmers are only talked about in the future sense, but we really are the ones working now and doing the hard work. And I think it's important that we see more young farmers on boards, organizations, at events like this, and to really show that we bring a lot of value, a lot of innovations and passion to this industry. And so I guess that's how I'll answer that.
Message received. I will never refer to young farmers as the future moving forward.
You can say future, but also, say the now as well.
No, and I think it's a great call out, right? Because sometimes when you make it about down the road, you think you have more time to solve the challenge, versus what you're saying is the challenge is today, so don't lose sight of that. So that's a great takeaway. Erika, how about you?
Yeah, can I echo money and interest free?
No, we're taking.
No, like David said, those are the obvious things. Like, that is obviously a huge struggle. Like, if we're talking about accessing technology, land access, increasing our cattle herd numbers just from the drought, right? We can increase our increase our productivity by all these things we're trying to do with grazing management. But then if we can't, have the money to purchase the cows to actually make that work, it's pretty tricky. But I also think, like David said, in the now, like, we're working and we have to make this work for our futures, our families. So the business risk management programs, I think, could use a lot of review and some help there. Like, on the cattle side, livestock price insurance, which was huge when it started, but now the premiums have gotten so high, there's a real sharp decline in adoption for that. And it's, for us too, you look at it and you're like, does that make sense for us to do? And agri-stability, like things like that, could be revamped to be more beneficial products.
And a bit more modern. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, well, our time is up, but I do want to thank the two of you, Erika and David. Let's give them a great round of applause. You are the now and the future. Yeah. And again, thank you for taking the time. Thanks so much. Thank you.